Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, October 15th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game in 3 days, the game against Michigan in 45 days. On today's show, we're talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes offense, and we're doing it with our buddy Ross Fulton, the X's and O's guru at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And when Ross is on the show, we're sponsored by Jeff Ruby's of Columbus, proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. All right, so the Ohio State Buckeyes, they're defending national champions. They are number one in the country right now. They're undefeated. They've even covered every game. What else could you possibly want? And yet the conversation around the offense is, what's wrong with the Ohio State offense? So, all right, we're going to talk about what is holding back the Ohio State offense. Ross, I think that conversation has to start with the running game, and we're going to take a balanced approach here. Some stuff is working, some stuff is not. Let's start with one of the things that is not necessarily working. One of these first plays, it was an unbalanced look and to Bo Jackson, and it kind of doesn't really go anywhere. So why doesn't it go anywhere?
Yeah, let me get a couple of thoughts out here to begin with. So as you said, like Ohio State undefeated, they are number one in every statistical measure. SP plus, which has been a little bit more down on them than FEI. They are now comfortably number one. Right there isn't even been, let alone a loss, a game like home against Nebraska last year, where they barely won, right? They are, this is going to sound like an excuse, but when Brian Day made the point, sort of similar to like the Iowa game a few years ago, like when you do get these turnovers and you're in plus territory, it kind of can create some clunkiness on offense, like it undercuts your plan, right? This is a long season, so they are trying to pace themselves. They are trying to bring along a young quarterback who they need to build his confidence over time. I do not think that what they want to be doing is having Julian Sayin throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game, even if that would be the way to maximize what they are facing from opposing defenses, which is a ton of single high coverage, a ton of cover three. I think opponents know that Ohio State, what I've just said is true, and that they also know that Ohio State does not want to put a ton on their redshirt freshman quarterback. And so they are playing to limit the run and sort of muddy things up, right? And knowing that Ohio State's going to kind of play along with them some. That said, the use of like so much 12 and 13 personnel is starting to test my patience, and I know many other people's patience. Like when you look at like the Bud Davis statistics on X, also recommend like Ohio State's multi-tight end usage is way above like the college football average right now. You would think that they don't have a quarterback run threat, right? So at some level, it makes sense to add bodies to help block on the edges. However, it's just muddying the water a lot for them. Defenses are bringing in more bodies, and especially as like we'll see here with counter, like it's making them trouble identifying. You also think they do it to get these like one-on-one matchups for they've essentially like two weapons, but those two weapons are amazing, and Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate. But they're getting those matchups and they're like not taking advantage of it when they get them. So it's just like they're just getting bodies at the point of attack. So like, yes. So here we go, right? Under center, unbalanced. So the tight end's covered up. You've got this sort of motion into this counter GH, running a lot of counter. I mean, there's a lot of run game diversity, right? This is not like a couple of years ago where we're talking about like the problem is they're running stretch too much. Like they're running all kinds of things. The problem is, as we talk about, like defenses can always outnumber you. There's the counterpart to the guy carrying the ball who cannot be blocked. And then once the quarterback hands off like this, his counterpart's not blocked, right? So you got one deep safety. You're kind of just running guys off. There's no like RPO threat. Obviously, you're under center. You're going to get down blocks here. We can get into the technique. Like it was a very sloppy game from the offensive line and even sloppier from the tight ends. And so like Luke Montgomery tries to kick out here. He loses. He does not get his feet underneath him. This happened a few times. He basically loses his balance, whiffs. You get an okay block here. You can see more from the backside. Like you get an okay double here from Daniels and Kazmarek, but they can't get off to the linebacker. That guy comes over the top. But even if the blocking was perfect, you have an extra body because Illinois is in cover one here, which is an obvious response to unbalance like this. Like, you're probably getting a run look. There's that safety number 7 sitting there who made all kinds of plays. And then eventually, they get the double team split and Kazmarek loses his block and the defensive end makes a play, which happens several times on counter. So it's hard to understand why you want to put multiple tight ends on the field when they do not block well. Like Max Clare, he is for sure their third receiving threat. He is not a good blocker. Like I obviously, like, the play that epitomizes that is where he about got Jeremiah Smith seriously injured on a reverse when it's 2-on-1 and he whiffs on a cornerback and what should have been a touchdown, which the Knights play design off of counter, gets blown up. Right. So you basically, I think Brandon Innes is probably a better blocker than Max Clare. So you have this weird situation where you don't really have a slot receiver, but your slot receiver is better blocker, and you have the second tight end who's really more of a slot receiver. All that said, if you're again putting a bunch of tight ends on the field, you're bringing bodies into the mix, and you're just muddying the water. So I just do not think there's a place for them to certainly use 12 personnel because of the receiving threat that Clare is, but they're just not getting a lot out of these looks. And I think they probably, as much as I like the run game diversity in theory, they are not blocking the amount of concepts well. So it could be a situation where they're trying to do too much up front and aren't able to handle it. So they may need to pare back the run game. Because the other thing is too, I should add, is like these running backs are not going to they're not going to make guys miss. They're not going to carry the offensive line, right? Like you could have situations in the past for Ohio State where it's not blocked perfectly up front, but the running back through vision, through explosiveness, through cuts, whatever choice you make is going to make someone miss, break a tackle. Like that's just not going to happen here.
Well, the next play is an example of something that does go well. This is from the opening drive. It's a nice long run by Bo Jackson, which kind of leads me into one of the things we've been discussing on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus at BuckeyeHuddle.com with all of our wonderful members. And that's the idea that maybe they're kind of just sort of working through some stuff right now. They have not really been pushed in any of these games. These games are not games that are going right down to the wire. They have not had a team that has had the ball in the fourth quarter with a chance to tie or take the lead since that one drive against Texas at the very end of that game. So they've had a little bit of margin for error in these games. So what do you think about the idea that they're just kind of trying a bunch of different stuff, personnel groupings, run concepts, whatever it is, to just sort of try and figure out what works? Because we saw last year, they didn't land on, here's the run scheme that's really going to work best with this group, with this personnel, until basically the playoffs. And then it worked great. And you just had to have your answer by then. Are they just kind of trying to figure stuff out right now? Or is this, is that kind of just people rationalizing something?
No, I think that's legit. I think they're trying stuff out. I think they're trying to try different personnel groupings out. They're trying not to overtax. Again, it's a long season now with the way the playoffs are set up. I also think, again, like as you said, they've had leads. Like there's no reason for them to necessarily push it to fifth gear because they haven't been forced to do so. Again, so they can sort of take things slowly, right? And so I do think there's some of that at play. Again, we're not we have to be able to keep two ideas in mind, which is this is by all accounts a top 5, top 10 offense. If you look at FEI and SP plus, and they're moving the ball efficiently, they're scoring points, but they aren't as good as they're not a top 2 or 3 offense like the Ohio State defense is, because they aren't as explosive and they aren't consistently running the football well. And so that's sort of the area we're working in. What could take this from being, 8 to 10 offense to 1 to 2 offense, if you look at advanced statistics.
Yeah. So, all right. So then let's look at one of the run concepts that did work, at least on the opening drive. And that was a really nice gain to Bo Jackson. So what went right here?
Yeah, again, so now we're getting more spread out, right? We're showing 10 open. We use this fast motion. This is a play that has been working for them with this boundary stretch. It's a sort of a split block, except Instead, you're having the tight end sift. So he's blocking the backside linebacker. You're getting bodies on bodies, and the backside tackle turns out instead. Again, so like, part of the issue is, as I talked about, like lots of cover three here by running away from Smith and Tate. We're getting, or the two wide receiver side, I should say, we're getting the Illinois safety to spin down to the field. So now they don't have force support to that side. And so it's just a cleaner picture, easier blocks, easier read for the back. I just think that, again, to me, like what's working better for them is getting more spread out, inside zone, outside zone. I think they've been better on zone blocking, the gap, mixing it with RPOs, which we'll get to, rather than just bodies, and using like even, later in the game, even when they were in 13, they had a nice run on a GT counter. So they're pulling the backside guard and tackle, but they combine it with like a flare screen threat or RPO threat to Claire. So like, again, instead of like getting the field stretched horizontally to open things up in the run game versus just counting on more bodies to be able to like block things cleanly.
All right. Well, now we're going to go back to more bodies to try and block things. And this is 12 personnel, and they're just going to try and run the ball inside, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And it feels like this is maybe proving your point here to a certain degree.
Yeah. So, I mean, this happened multiple times in the second half where, again, so like there's no disguise here from Illinois, right? Like, what you're getting. We've got a cover three. We're rotated at the snap. He's spun down, cover three weak to the boundary. This is just duo inside zone. Would take your pick of which concept it is, but everyone, you're trying to get doubles to the second level. It's combined with these quick hitches or comeback routes. So like the first issue again is like we saw this versus Washington where they didn't throw the RPOs, and then they started to in the second half when they were pushed a little bit, right? Minnesota, they came out and threw them. They like just, I don't know if they shut them off or if Sayan wasn't seeing it or feeling comfortable with the picture. I tend to lean towards they just shut them off. They had the one on the first series of the game. It was that glance route to Carnell Tate where it was wide open. It would have been an explosive play. But again, Max Clare blocked the wrong guy, let someone come right on his inside hip who batted the pass down. So maybe again, with the lead, being ultra conservative, don't want to push things, don't want to get a tip ball that leads to an interception. They just like turn them off. But like, again, this is like an easy, right? If Sayan's actually reading this as like an easy free access throw and you're getting the ball to your best two players in Smith and Tate. And so we're going to see again on the next clip, but like until they like fully embrace the RPOs, the offense is going to be held back because they're getting these one high looks. So they don't have numbers in the box and they don't have a quarterback run threat to equip numbers. So you're just always going to be down. Like, again, like blocking, not great up front. If you look at the back end view, like Montgomery does get off to the linebacker. Saraville gets beat. I think you would say here, like looking at it from CJ Donaldson's perspective, like you'd like to see him try to either cut out a side of Tegra Shabola or bounce back to where the tight ends actually have held their blocks decently on this play. But again, like the running back situation kind of is what it is. Like CJ Donaldson's going to run downhill and that's pretty much what you're going to get. So I think like a really talented back could have made something of this, but without that, like the way this offense is going to be explosive is like hitting these RPOs. And then we'll talk about the downfield, the play action game, but they just, without the RPOs, like you're just letting teams steal from you to be able to sit in like that cover three and leave Carnell Tate and Smith out there singled up with soft coverage and not do anything about it.
That to me, I mean, it seems like that should be a relatively fixable issue, right? I mean, that, of the issues you could have on offense, that feels like one that you could just either, like you said, you turn it on or you just say, hey, do this, make this throw. And, if it's a blocking issue up front, you tweak that as necessary. But of all the issues you could have, that feels to me like one that should be something that's, not a 2-month fix. That might be a fix it in practice this week kind of fix.
Yeah, I have to, like, if I had to guess, I think they're just turned off because I've seen Sand throw him. He throws them very well. He obviously has a quick release. He's accurate. We've all seen him do it. So that would be my guess. So I think that again is like, we've got a couple score lead. We're on the road against a good team. We have a really good defense. We're going to like keep the car and we're going to just cruise in to the parking lot, basically. Obviously people are going to get mad when they hear that, right? Like we've seen it on Buckeye Huddle. Like, and I don't know what to tell you. Like, I guess like I find it frustrating too. Like, this again is a game that Smith and Tate could have probably had double-digit receptions if they just like hit those plays. Even putting aside like throwing the football downfield. But again, as you said, long season. It could be as simple as like, we want teams to keep playing us like this. So when we get to the place where we need those RPOs, like we want to get this, very transparent cover 3, and we want Julian Sand to be playing with a ton of confidence and not have thrown, a bad pick 6 on the road because he makes a bad RPO read. Like, there's it's a long season. And as you said, like they're comfortably the number 1 team right now and pretty much like in the playoffs already. So, you gotta build over time.
Well, and another area where we have seen them struggle and people go absolutely crazy is in the red zone. They've kind of bogged down in the red zone at times, and especially in the run game. And it felt like there was at least some incremental progress there. I think this is not the play we're showing, but I think the C.J. Donaldson touchdown where he basically walked into the end zone, that was at least a very similar concept to the 4th and 1 at Washington where Nate Roberts, I think, blocked the wrong guy at Washington. He blocked the right guy this time, and then C.J. Donaldson basically waltzes into the end zone. And this is another one, this next one we're going to, this is another one where he doesn't score on this play, but this is, field is compacted, lots of defenders in a relatively small area, and they pick up a nice gain here to really set up, I think this ended up setting up a touchdown.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of effort into the diversity of what they're doing in like goal line and short yardage, right? Like, saw with the Nate Roberts carry. Some of it better than others. Not a big fan of that like shovel pass on 3rd and 4, especially if you're not going to go for it on 4th down. We saw a down G lead again, which is a great goal line play. The passing game in this area, I think could, again, leaves a little bit to be desired. Like they kept running 4 verts in the red zone, which is like, vertical routes in the red zone isn't a necessarily great concept. Again, you wonder about like the just kind of getting the field position they did. Like, Illinois ran a ton of cover, single high, as I said, except when they got in the red zone, you got a lot more Tampa from them, which kind of threw them off. But like, again, so yeah, is this run play bad? No, right? I mean, they gained like 4 yards. So it's probably, you'd consider a successful play. However, like, again, you got glance routes to Smith and Tate. The split zone and the glance route's wide open, right? So again, backside safety coming down late. You just hit, that's an easy, they threw it against Minnesota, right? The exact same play, hit Smith for a second touchdown. Like throw that to the second L in Illinois, and it's an easy touchdown. As it is, it's an okay play, except you've got a back, everything's blocked up fine up front. It's just the plays made by the safety. And you don't account for him in the blocking scheme. Like, again, there's several situations where number 7, the safety, made tackles near the line of scrimmage. Be great if you had running backs that could occasionally beat that guy, but that's not really happening. So again, it's just going to limit. It's just going to make it like they did move the ball. They were efficient. It's not like they're going 3 and outs, until the 4th quarter where they like really kind of putzed around. But like it's just making them have to grind out drives. So they're making it a little bit harder on themselves. Again, your mileage may vary as to the why they're doing it, whether you are okay with like the long-term goals of it. But like, again, Jeremiah Smith walking in the end zone really should not let people single cover him down there. I did like the touchdown throw to him, getting under center and throwing that. Like that's a nice thing to get under center because it really throws off the defense and you get cover 0. But I just, you'd like to see a little bit more of expanding the passing game inside the 10 or inside the 20.
Well, they certainly have expanded the passing game to include Max Clare more in the last few games, and we've talked about him as a blocker before, and he is probably, if you're going to be an 11, he's probably not going to be the one in 11. That's going to be Will Kazmarek. So I'm wondering, and I want you to get to your first play here, where this is kind of a play action pass down to Clare. But when you're looking at 12 personnel, can you just split? Can you use Max Clare in the slot and basically have him be I know he's not the prototypical slot receiver in a lot of ways, but if Brandon Inniss is a better blocker and Max Clare is a better receiver, can you use Max Clare sort of split out in the slot, and maybe you're using Brandon Inniss, you're in 11 personnel, but he's kind of more of a blocker and he's closer to formation. Is that something that you could see them maybe working on or working in the next couple games?
Yeah, or just using Clare. You said you did see Inniss like on those wind back plays where they come back with the wide receiver coming across the formation that weren't particularly successful on Saturday, but they run that with him as a blocker. Or just Clare like going away from the run scheme, like part of the RPO rather than as an inline blocker. I agree. Like I do think some of the personnel, like bigger picture, is. You could say it's because of who they have. You could say it's out of necessity, right? Like, as I said, they don't really have a slot receiver. Like, Brendan Inniss is like doing fine. Like, they obviously aren't featuring him, and Sayin isn't really looking to him. And then your best receiving tight end is probably your sixth best blocking tight end. I don't even know if they have 6 blocking tight ends on the roster, but that's my point. And so you kind of have this weird mix, right? Where you're like trying to get, you're trying to sort of hybridize things together. So yeah, Clare, clearly you want to use him more as a receiver, right? And so this is a nice concept. I do think I like the run game diversity, and they're doing a much better job of play action from under center and pistol, right? Like we see a lot more of that, I think, in the past. So like they deserve credit for that. This is a good, again, cover 3. This is a good concept against cover 3 where it's a sail route, right? Like you got the deep route, it's a flood concept, right? Like the deep out and then the flat route. You read this deep to middle to low. I think that this is, again, like, I think this is someone in the eye of the beholder, right? Like Julian saying, could he throw that ball to Carnell Tate? Carnell Tate definitely thinks he should throw the ball to Carnell Tate. You can see in his hands, right? You have that. He's reading that flat defender. The flat defender is getting depth at the time. You can see Saints thinking about throwing it, and he throws in the flat. So again, I think saying he's very accurate. He is efficient. I think he's trying very hard. He's being a little conservative, right? And so again, like, every person has a different personality. He's not killing you with these plays. Like, this is a first down, right? Like, this is an efficient play. Could he have pulled it? Could he have pulled the trigger and thrown it to Tate? Maybe. And maybe over time he gets more comfortable. So in some, this play to me is sort of aptly captures where things are, like with Sayin in the Ohio State pass offense. Like, he is being efficient. He is keeping the chains moving. Like he's seeing things. He probably makes the right read here even. But he's just being pretty conservative with the football. And so like that's kind of reflected in how the offense is, right? With, this play moves, as I said, it gets a first down, but it's not there. When in doubt, he's not pushing the football downfield if the read is muddy at the moment. And probably that confidence to do so will probably grow over time.
All right, next up, we have another one that is going downfield. This one's going a little further downfield to Max Clare. Just kind of a seam shot here where, again, not the most exciting play, but kept Ohio State on schedule, kept the chains moving.
Yeah, and this is the one explosive pass play of the game. So, I just would say, like, I obviously was critical of Max Clare's blocking. This is much more where he is at his best to be utilized, right? Like, again, without sort of having a slot receiver that they can feature, like an Emeka Ibuka or a Jackson Smith-Njigba. This is much more where Clare needs to come into play, right? And so, again, just getting so much single high coverage here. They run 4 verticals here, and this is Clare down the seam. I think that I would like to see, like, a little bit more of like, you're getting this much cover 3 and cover 1, like a little bit more attacking the seams, between that middle of the field safety. They did run a weak flood some, hitting Jeremiah Smith on the dig route earlier in the game. Some Y cross, even if you have to, if you don't want to go to the slot receiver, like put Smith or Tate in the slot to run the Y cross, like some things, some cover 3 beaters like this that sort of stretch the field a little bit more. As we'll talk about the next one, like they're really good at Hank, like curl flat. They're good at comebacks. Like they've got that down against cover 3, but like some cover 3 concepts that sort of push the field.
All right. Well, you just went ahead and set up the next clip very nicely. So I will just say this is one of these plays. It was 3rd and 6, and this is one of these plays where you watch it and it just looks so easy, and it has to be so annoying to play against Ohio State. And it's 3rd and 6. It's a passing situation. It's like, oh, got it behind the chains. Here we go. And then it just looks so effortless to pick it up and move the chains.
Yeah, I mean, this play is sort of, I wanted it to be last because it encapsulates like where things are. Like on the one hand, because of all the things we've talked about, they put a lot on themselves to like these 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situations. Like on the other hand, unlike a lot of teams, like they can run these routes and get first downs out of them, right? Like this is like, I mean, just a ton of like comeback curl concepts as always. This in theory shouldn't really work against this because it's cover 1. Like curls, you want to run against cover 3, like you stretch the 4 underneath defenders. But with Smith and Tate, like they completed this multiple times against man coverage because they're such a vertical threat. They're so big and physical, right? And saying like, you can, whatever you want to say about him, like he throws these comeback routes, curl routes, those out routes, like really well. Like the timing's really good. He puts the ball in the right spot, right? So they can, again, like this is why they are still a top 10 offense and not like lower than that, despite like the inefficiency out of the run game and not taking the top off the defense and like not fully kicking into gear, right? Because it can just be efficient because like in these 3rd and medium situations, they have 2 receivers and a quarterback that can sort of bail them out from things they might have done on earlier downs. It just put a lot on their plate on Saturday to make these kind of throws on 3rd down rather than like running them on earlier downs. There's, a lot of run pass going on. And especially, for 2 yards at a time whereas they probably could have thrown, like as boring as it may be, they could have probably thrown curl flat like 50 times in that game if they wanted to, and just move the football that way.
All right. Well, there you go. The world not, in fact, ending with the Ohio State offense, despite what people may have felt at various times on Saturday. Buckeyes did give up double digits on defense, multiple touchdowns, in fact, in one game. Is the world ending on defense? Well, we will find that out on tomorrow's show when we welcome Ross back. And when we do, we will once again be sponsored by Jeff Ruby's of Columbus, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.